Vietnam, 1967. Deep in the jungle south of Da Nang, a North Vietnamese Army sniper is moving carefully through the undergrowth. He has been hunting the same target for 3 days. The target is a United States Marine Corps gunnery sergeant. The NVA has put a $30,000 bounty on this man's head. American dollars. In 1967, that is more than most Vietnamese farmers will earn in a lifetime. They have sent their best sniper to collect it. What the NVA sniper doesn't know, what he can't know, is that the man he is hunting has been hunting him for exactly the same 3 days. 2 snipers, same jungle, moving toward each other. Only one will pull the trigger. His name is Carlos Hathcock, and he is the most dangerous man in Vietnam. Carlos Norman Hathcock II was born in Little Rock, Arkansas, in 1942. He grew up poor, in the kind of poverty that teaches children to be self-sufficient early. By the time he was 8 years old, he was hunting squirrels in the woods behind his grandmother's house to help put food on the table, not for sport, for survival. He discovered something in those Arkansas woods that would define the rest of his life. He was extraordinarily good at this. At the age of 17, Hathcock enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. He spent the early years of his service developing skills that the Corps didn't yet know what to do with. He was a competition shooter of almost supernatural ability. In 1965, he won the Wimbledon Cup, the most prestigious long-range rifle competition in the United States. He fired against the best shooters in the American military and won with a score that stood as a record for years. But competition shooting was not what Carlos Hathcock was built for. What he was built for was Vietnam. He arrived in Vietnam in 1966, attached to the 1st Marine Division in 1st Corps, the northernmost military region of South Vietnam. The terrain was some of the most difficult in the country. Mountains covered in triple canopy jungle, river valleys crawling with North Vietnamese Army regulars and Viet Cong guerrillas, territory where an American could be surrounded and dead before he knew he was in danger. This was Hathcock's world. He operated with his spotter, Corporal John Burke, moving through terrain that other Marines moved through only in large formations, with fire support on call. 2 men, moving through jungle controlled by the enemy, staying invisible, waiting for exactly the right moment. The white feather that Hathcock wore in his bush hat was not standard Marine Corps issue. It was his choice. A deliberate act of defiance in the face of an enemy that was hunting him. The NVA called him Long Trung, the White Feather. They knew his name. They studied his methods. They tracked his movements with their own intelligence network. And at some point, a point that the Marine Corps intelligence officers could only estimate, the North Vietnamese Army Command made a decision. They put a bounty on his head, $30,000, American currency. At a time when a Vietnamese laborer might earn $30 in a month, the bounty was an extraordinary statement. It said, "This man is costing us more than the expense of eliminating him." It said, "We cannot find him ourselves, so we will pay someone who can." They sent their best sniper, the man the Marines called the Cobra, a North Vietnamese sniper of considerable skill, who had already killed American officers and had a reputation among NVA forces as a hunter of exceptional patience and ability. The Cobra was sent into the jungle south of Da Nang with one mission: find the White Feather, kill him. What happened over the next 3 days in that jungle is one of the most extraordinary individual combat encounters of the entire Vietnam War. 2 snipers, hunting each other simultaneously through the same terrain. Hathcock knew the Cobra was there. Marine intelligence had tracked the NVA sniper's movements. They knew roughly where he was operating. They knew he was good. They knew he was hunting Hathcock specifically. Any other man might have pulled back, waited, let the threat dissipate before returning to operations. Hathcock went toward it. He moved at a pace that later stretched credibility when he described it. Inches at a time, sometimes taking an hour to move 10 meters, using the jungle itself as cover, watching for any sign of disturbance, any inconsistency in the natural pattern of the undergrowth, any shadow that fell at the wrong angle. He was looking for a man who was doing exactly the same thing. On the 3rd day, Hathcock saw it. A glint, not sunlight on water, not a reflection from vegetation. The specific, unmistakable glint of sunlight hitting a rifle scope lens. The Cobra was in position, had been there probably for hours, waiting, watching the same ground that Hathcock was crossing. The Cobra was already aiming at him. Hathcock had a fraction of a second. He fired. The shot went directly through the Cobra's rifle scope, through the glass, down the tube, into the eye of the man who had come to kill him. To enter the scope, the enemy sniper had to be looking directly at Hathcock, which meant the Cobra's rifle was already pointed exactly where Hathcock was, which meant if Hathcock had been 1 second slower, it would have been the Cobra who pulled the trigger first. Hathcock later said simply, "I was lucky." But luck did not explain 3 days of movement through enemy jungle without being detected. Luck did not explain the hours of patience required to reach a position where the shot was possible. Luck did not explain the extraordinary marksmanship required to put a bullet through a rifle scope at combat range. That was not luck. That was Carlos Hathcock. The most famous single mission of Hathcock's Vietnam service was not the encounter with the Cobra. It was the 3-day crawl. Intelligence had identified a high-value target, a senior NVA officer operating from a position deep in enemy-controlled territory. The position was surrounded. No approach route existed that could be covered by a conventional patrol without being compromised miles from the target. Someone would have to go alone, or nearly alone. Hathcock volunteered. What followed was 1,500 meters of crawling, through elephant grass, through undergrowth, through terrain patrolled by NVA soldiers who were specifically watching for infiltrators. 1,500 meters, crawling, over 3 days. He moved so slowly that insects landed on him and he could not swat them. NVA soldiers walked within arm's reach. One soldier stepped directly over Hathcock's body without looking down, not seeing him because he had become, in those 3 days, simply part of the landscape. He reached his firing position on the morning of the 3rd day, set up, ranged the target, controlled his breathing. 1 shot, then the crawl back out, 1,500 meters back through enemy territory. The mission was a success. The target was eliminated, and Carlos Hathcock crawled back out of that jungle the same way he crawled in, alone, invisible, alive. By the time his Vietnam service was complete, Hathcock had 93 confirmed kills. The actual number was almost certainly higher. Many kills in denied territory could not be confirmed by the standards the Marine Corps required for official credit. 93 confirmed. And a reputation that outlasted the war. The Marines who served with him called him simply Sergeant Hathcock, or sometimes White Feather. They spoke about him the way soldiers speak about men of genuine, unmistakable ability, with a mixture of admiration and something close to awe. The enemy called him Long Trang, and they feared him in a way that the $30,000 bounty expressed more clearly than any intelligence report could. You don't put a bounty that large on a man unless you are genuinely afraid of him. The NVA was afraid of Carlos Hathcock. What made him so effective was not simply marksmanship, though his marksmanship was extraordinary. It was the totality of his approach to the mission. He understood patience as a weapon. He could wait longer than the enemy expected anyone to wait. He could stay still longer than biology suggested was comfortable. He could move slower than the jungle required. He understood the environment as armor. The jungle was not an obstacle for Hathcock. It was concealment. It was protection. It was the medium through which he moved, while remaining invisible. And he understood the psychology of hunting. He knew how men moved when they thought they were safe. He knew the patterns of behavior that revealed position. He knew that the enemy, like all men, fell into habits, and that habits in his world were fatal. In 1969, Carlos Hathcock was driving a truck on a dirt road in Vietnam when the vehicle struck a landmine. The explosion caught fire. Several Marines in the vehicle were badly burned and could not get out. Hathcock pulled them out, one by one, through fire. He suffered severe burns across most of his body in the process. He was returned to the United States. He spent months in recovery. The burns were serious enough that his return to full duty was uncertain for a long time. He recovered. He returned to service. He spent years training the next generation of Marine Corps snipers, teaching them the patience, the fieldcraft, and the marksmanship that he had developed over years of hunting in Arkansas woods and Vietnam jungle. In 1975, he was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, a degenerative condition that would progressively take from him the physical capabilities that had defined his life and his service. He continued to work with the Marine Corps sniper program for as long as his health permitted. Carlos Hathcock died on February 23, 1999. He was 56 years old. The Marine Corps sniper program that he helped build, the doctrine he helped develop, the standards he helped establish, they outlasted him. Every Marine Corps sniper who has served since then has been trained on methods that Hathcock developed. In the hills south of Da Nang, in the jungle where the cobra came for him, on the 1,500 meters of elephant grass he crawled through over 3 days to reach a target nobody else could reach. The NVA offered $30,000 for his life. They never collected. The white feather went home. Next week on Lost Patrol, November 1965, Landing Zone Albany, the Ia Drang Valley. A battalion of American soldiers walks into the most carefully prepared ambush of the entire Vietnam War. In 11 minutes, everything falls apart. Subscribe to Lost Patrol so you don't miss it. If this video changed how you think about individual courage in warfare, hit that like button. 2 seconds. It tells the algorithm, this story deserves to be heard. This is Lost Patrol, the battles they never found. There is one more story from Hathcock's Vietnam service that belongs in any honest account of who he was. In the hills south of Da Nang, there was a woman the Marines called Apache, a Viet Cong operative who captured American soldiers and subjected them to prolonged torture before killing them. Marines in the area had found her victims. They knew what she was doing. They had been unable to stop her. Hathcock was given the mission. He found her. He watched her for days. He waited until the shot was clear and safe, until no civilians were at risk, until the intelligence was confirmed, until there was no question about what he was doing and why. He took the shot. He later said, it was the only kill in his career that brought him something other than the quiet professional satisfaction of a mission completed. He said he felt relief, because Apache was not going to hurt anyone else. This is the complicated truth about Carlos Hathcock that the legend sometimes obscures. He was not a man who enjoyed killing. He was not a man who gloried in his reputation or his body count. He was a man who understood, with complete clarity, what his mission was and why it mattered. He was protecting the Marines on his left and right. He was protecting the men who were walking through the same jungle he was moving through. Every shot he fired, the Cobra, the General's Aid, Apache, the 93 confirmed kills that fill the record, every one of them was, in his mind, a Marine who came home because someone didn't come home. That is how he understood it. That is how he lived with it. Carlos Hathcock, Gunnery Sergeant, United States Marine Corps. The White Feather, 93 confirmed kills, $30,000 bounty on his head, and a name that the men who fought alongside him and the men who were sent to kill him never forgot. The Marine Corps Scout Sniper program that Hathcock helped build has trained thousands of snipers in the decades since Vietnam. The curriculum he helped develop, the fieldcraft, the stalking techniques, the patience discipline, the marksmanship standards, remains the foundation of Marine Corps sniper training to this day. The Wimbledon Cup that he won in 1965, the competition that first brought his extraordinary ability to the attention of the military establishment, is still awarded annually. Marine Corps shooters still compete for it. The White Feather, the symbol that gave him his Vietnamese name, is now worn by Marine Corps Scout Sniper graduates as a tradition, a direct lineage from the man who wore one in the jungle south of Da Nang because nobody could tell him not to. His story was told in the biography Marine Sniper, written by Charles Henderson and published in 1986. It became a bestseller. It introduced Carlos Hathcock to an American public that had largely never heard of him, because his service, conducted in the classified world of long-range reconnaissance and sniper operations, had not been the subject of news coverage at the time. He read the book. He approved of it. He was characteristically modest about the attention it brought him. "I'm just a Marine," he said. "I did my job." That is all he ever said. "I'm just a Marine. I did my job." The NVA paid $30,000 to disagree. The jungle south of Da Nang, where Hathcock operated, is peaceful farmland and secondary growth today. The trails he moved through, the ridge lines he used for observation, the river valleys he crossed in the dark, all of it unrecognizable now from what it was in 1966 and 1967. Time does that. But the record remains. 93 confirmed kills, the most of any American sniper in the Vietnam War. A body of work built over months of patient, precise, professional operations in some of the most dangerous terrain on Earth, against an enemy that knew his name, feared his methods, and paid a small fortune to have him stopped. They failed. Carlos Hathcock came home. He is buried at Hampton National Cemetery in Hampton, Virginia. On his gravestone, Gunnery Sergeant, United States Marine Corps. No mention of the white feather, no mention of the 93 kills, no mention of the bounty, no mention of the Cobra, or the 3-day crawl, or the burning truck. Just his name, his rank, his service. Just a Marine who did his job.